You hear about copyright strikes. You hear about people reporting other people, taking other channels down. You hear people giving their opinion, but using a video. Today, we got a phenomenal guest. We're going to be talking about what is fair use and what is fair use and what is straight out stealing on the NBA, Armchair NBA. Hello, Tom Lebecki here with the latest edition of the Armchair NBA. Today we have legal royalty in the house, the trademark attorney, Francesca Witzburg, who is a partner at Loza and is an expert in intellectual property, aka IP. Francesca, welcome to the Armchair NBA today. How you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here today. Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's my pleasure. Now, she popped in yesterday to give her opinion on Amber Heard, which she didn't need to do. She's very busy, but she gave her opinion on the outcome of the trial. Now we're going to be a little bit more within her wheelhouse, which is IP, which is intellectual property law. So we're going to jump right in. Okay, we're going to focus a little bit more on YouTube today. There's a lot of controversy about stealing content, fair use, and the like. So let's kind of set the stage. You and I are going to record this great podcast. We are going to upload it on my channel. At that point, what is that? Is that a copyright? And give us kind of the first level of protection at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So I like to say that everyone has an IP toolbox. And in that toolbox, you can use different tools to protect the business. So the thing that we're looking at is a podcast. Yeah. You can use different tools to protect the podcast. Number one, you can use a trademark to protect the name of the podcast. Number two, you can use copyright to protect the audio and the video.
Nice.
And number three, you can use contracts to have contractual language that sets the terms between you and your guests.
Interesting. And I'm probably too loose. It's interesting because Francesca, she knows me, obviously. I'm a little loosey-goosey. I should have released and that kind of stuff. I know that. If somebody wants something down, I take it down. But I upload the video. You hear on your own reconnaissance, right? And we get some views, right? Now somebody comes along and maybe wants to steal my thunder. Let's go about what is not fair use and what's just basically theft of content. We'll stick in the realm of YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So even without a copyright registration, just upon creation of a creative work, you have a copyright.
Okay.
A registration, however, is required if you want to actually sue someone in court. So let's say that someone is stealing your stuff and you don't have a registration. It's going to be really hard to get them to take it down. Like even if you want to do a takedown notice, which if anyone knows what that is, you email DMCA. Yep. They're going to want to see your registration. So having registration is important. And basically someone can't just take all your content and upload it. That I would say is infringement.
Got it. Okay. So unpack that a little bit, right? Somebody takes some of my content, they put it up. Within the ecosystem of YouTube, it's pretty easy. They let you know, hey, here's your duplicate copy. You hit a little strike, and then they either like kind of fight it, or it comes down, right? So that ecosystem kind of is checks and balances. But let's say we're on Vimeo or on another platform, right? That's a little bit more loosey goosey. So hey, take down my content, buddy. No, I don't want to take it down. In order for it to be enforceable, right, in law, so you have to register that said content, correct?
To really enforce, and that's like this. Think about it. Without a registration, you can try, but it's going to be really hard. Having a registration is actually required to sue someone. So yeah, you can send them a demand letter without a registration number. It happens a lot. Yeah. But if you have that registration, or if you get a letter with someone has a registration number, that's something to really be concerned about, because the Supreme Court ruled on that you have to have the registration to sue.
Yeah, but it's cost prohibitive for me to send every video to copyright. So what do I do? Do I or trademark? Do I just make sure to trademark my name and trademark elements of it, therefore makes it enforceable, or do you actually have to send this episode to some registration authority?
Because there's a couple of different things. Can you just
Yeah.
I want to clarify.
So
Yeah.
I upload my video, right? And somebody uses it and they profit off me and I want to sue, right? I obviously like what's enforceable. Is it the use of the name? Is it my likeness? What I'm trying to get at is
Yeah.
I'm not
What's
going
the
to submit
right?
the podcast and submit this actual episode to a trademark authority, right? But what is enforceable? Is it the trademark? Is it the likeness, or what's enforceable?
That's the IP tools, right?
Yes.
So you can use them to protect your business, and you also have those tools to enforce your business. So if they're using the name, you can potentially, depending on the situation, you can sue for trademark infringement of the name.
Okay.
Then there's copyright. You can't just take someone's audio and video and use it and profit from it in some way, or even not even profit, just using it and harm someone.
Yeah.
And then then you mentioned someone's name, likeness, and image. So the right to their publicity, that is also another intellectual property right that's separate. So if I were the attorney and it was a clear case of infringement, or we were going to allege infringement, I would probably have all three of those intellectual property infringement claims.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so again, in the YouTube realm, which kind of focusing on, it's easy to do a copyright strike. All that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now we get to a little funny thing called fair use. Walk us through that, Francesca.
Okay, fair use is not a right. It's very important. So people, you don't have a right to take someone's work and say, well, it's my right as fair use. It's not a right. It's a defense. So you could still be infringing, but then you have a defense of saying, well, yes, I was infringing, but it was okay because it was just purely educational, or it met the criteria for being fair use. There's 4 prongs to it. Yes. It is a test. It's an assessment. It is complicated as hell. Yeah. The courts, it's a mess. It is a mess right now. And so the Supreme Court is actually hopefully going to clarify this. They just took an appeal that will hopefully provide some clarity in the test. But I think even if they do provide clarity, it's still going to be confusing because I guess we'll have to wait and see, but I doubt they're gonna come up with a black and white test. It'll probably be some sort of analysis, which is unfortunate for creatives and content creators because no one knows. And I'm good at my job, and I still have to, say it's a risk, and it falls somewhere in, that's what I do is I say, what's your comfort level? What risk level are you comfortable with? Because if you're risk adverse, then get permission or use royalty-free content. But if maybe you are okay with it and you have a budget to defend if you need to, and you think it's fair use, then, that changes the assessment.
One thing I learned about a business attorney, it's not if it's right or wrong, is it defensible? That's what all he says to me. I call him up. I have a question. And he goes, Tom, do you think this is defensible? And then obviously, he gives me he weighs in. Yeah. So it's not about right or wrong. Is it defensible? Again, at least of course, in his opinion. Okay. So now, it's gonna be interesting, right? And you're obviously not giving legal advice, and you were just 2 people chatting and having to be recording the conversation. There's a lot of trolls in the YouTube game. And it's interesting enough is I'm finding out there's actually some good trolls where they have they have a purpose, they have kind of an ethos, they have kind of parameters. Then obviously there's bad trolls, which are just bad people, right? And there's probably maybe a blurred line, but nevertheless, there's those 2 camps, right? And some of these trolls, what they do. Now, again, I want to preface this because I kind of get shit. I get emails from both sides. Okay, number one, I am a big free market and free speech guy. Point period, right? However, I also believe that creators' right to defend their IP. Otherwise, it'll stifle creation. So I like to balance that out, right? So let's just say, sake of argument, they're recording this actual segment. They throw a little party hat on me. They make it black and white. They kind of fuzz yours up a little bit, and they still play it and maybe make a voice go a little faster. Is that fair use, or you know what? That's a little thin.
Yeah, what you're getting to is the transformative piece of the test.
Yes.
So there's 4 steps,
Okay.
and one of the prongs is whether or not it's transformative enough. Because to your point, copyright law can't be so restrictive that it suppresses free speech and expression. So that's why we allow certain uses, especially in the art context, to create and make expressive works. However, we don't know. Like I'm an attorney, and the test is really challenging. The cases are all over the place. So I do my best to analyze given the prior case law and the circumstances. But like I said, I'm very business focused, and so I do tell clients like this is the business risk when it comes down to it. And anything fair use that you think you're arguing, there's always a risk. Don't assume you'll be okay, because anyone can sue you, and then you have to defend it in court or outside, between lawyers, which could be very expensive. So the best practice really is to get permission or to use royalty free if you're like super risk adverse.
Got it. Yeah, and you gotta whether I like it or not, legal fees are part and parcel. They're just a cost of doing business. I actually allocate X amount per year for that. I gotta trademark something soon, so I'll talk to you after the show. Which is good news, but nevertheless, okay. So now we're gonna get into something a little crazier. Okay. Now we find somebody that is just obsessed with Tom and Francesca, like the Tom and Francesca show. We are obsessed with them, right? And they do maybe put like a cat on my head, like they put a mask on you, and again they make this transformative, and they're doing it for a while, right? And they really use us in the words and that kind of stuff. And we go to YouTube, hey man, take that down. And YouTube doesn't, right? However, there's no injury, meaning like my show's still doing well. Reviews are there. I have a good ecosystem. So like they are kind of stealing my stuff, and it's kind of crappy, and it's thin in terms of fair use, but there's no injury. Does there need to be injury, or does it matter just as long as I think they're stealing it?
That's a good question. So basically when you have a copyright, you have the right to distribute, to use. You're the only person. So by making a copy, it is infringement. But then if you were to litigate, you would have to prove damages, of course. So yeah. But the damage could be that you took a sale away. It doesn't have to be just something that like we think of like, oh, well, you made money. Or it literally can be the fact that by doing that, you took a potential sale away from
opportunity cost all the time. Absolutely. Opportunity cost could be
correct.
It could be factored in. All right. Now, and I'm going to put a link, because if you want to set a consult up with Francesca, and put a link there. But I'm also going to put her Instagram. She is the trademark attorney. Give us kind of like some of the rookie mistakes we make as business people or as creators. As creators first.
Sure.
So I'm a creator, I have my show, I do all my stuff, and then all of a sudden I call you way too late, and you're like, Tom, why didn't you call me 6 months ago? What are some of the common mistakes creators make?
There's 3, okay? 1, not protecting your name. Most of us have a business name, or we have some name we're using, and we think that just by using it for a long time that we're fine, we're okay. That's a major problem. Without a registration, yes, you have trademark rights, but those rights are super limited. They are literally limited to the geographic region where you use the mark.
I didn't know that.
Who knows what that means? Like if being online or having a podcast, it's a major problem. So the way that you get around it is by having a federal registration. And it gives you a presumption of rights in all 50 states. And I say presumption because someone can contest it and say, no, you actually don't have. But basically, when you file, it is presumed that you will have rights in all 50 states. That's how you get around that geographic.
Got it. So that's the first one. What's the second one?
The second one is not protecting your content. So a lot of us put out audio, video.
Yeah.
We have courses, methods, like amazing content,
Yeah.
proprietary stuff that we put our blood, sweat, and tears into. And if you are not doing very simple things to protect it, you could lose it. You could literally be
That's true.
losing your copyrights if you don't enforce them. So and then the third is contracts.
Yes.
So literally, I mean, I referred to that guest release, having a guest podcast
Yeah.
release, because if without it, what exactly are you giving? Who owns the podcast? Are you allowed to use my picture? What happens if you turn the podcast into an NFT? Like, do you have the right? So getting a podcast release, very general release is always good,
Yeah.
and using contracts.
Okay, so we got the 3 mistakes. You mentioned NFTs for a second, and for those
Yeah.
people that do not know what NFTs are, they are non-fungible tokens, things you can't touch and feel. And I got to be honest with you, I thought they were a scam until my son asked for Robux, which is money within a game, Roblox, and
Uh-huh.
it's real money to get the Robux because he had to buy skins or hats or something. So it's real money being spent on non-real things, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So why don't you talk us a little about NFTs and how to maybe, I don't say circumvent, but kind of navigate within that landscape in terms of IP.
Yeah, NFTs are non-fungible tokens. They're basically digital assets that are verified.
Digital
So
art, yeah.
you can go to the blockchain and see who has ownership, and it's really changing the way we think about ownership, because you're right, you can't touch and feel it, but you can own a piece of digital art, which is, kind of cool. And it's
Yeah.
not just art right now. We're using NFTs to get access to concerts. Coachella did a lifetime access to their events
Oh
with an
wow.
NFT. It's really incredible. My friend who has a podcast, the Legally Speaking podcast, he just made an NFT where if you buy it, you get certain services, like they give you masterclass access,
Oh
and
shit.
it's really cool. So you'll be doing one soon, Tom, I'm
I
sure.
love it. I did mint an NFT for the old show, but I totally screwed it up. So I got to talk to you about it because it was Ether and I did 0.1. But I will do
It's a
one.
lot.
Might even do this episode. That's the other thing too. Like, there's a lot of people taking their content off of YouTube and then making it like we can make
Yes.
this episode an
Yes.
NFT, correct?
Because guess what? YouTube owns, I mean, they, depending on what the license is, but really, like, you have to use YouTube. You abide by their terms. You're
Correct,
really
correct,
like a
correct.
prisoner.
Yeah.
No,
No, I don't
not
know.
a prisoner, but
Shuts down. No, I get it.
yeah, we love you, YouTube. No,
Mm.
but you agree to their terms by posting content. But with NFTs, you are the owner. You can actually take ownership and monetize your content without needing to do it through ads. Think
No.
ads are the way that we make money,
Correct.
or by
Correct.
marketing our services using content on these platforms. But with NFTs, and I'm sure YouTube will eventually integrate NFTs.
Yeah.
But it really gives the opportunity for content owners to own their content. Like, imagine if you created a meme that went viral. The way that it is now, I have clients that come to me and are heartbroken because
Yeah.
these are real artists that may have created something that went viral. Now there's no way to monetize it, because how do you stop millions of people all over the world from using your copyright? And there's a copyright in it, and we could go after them, but
Yeah.
it's very hard. But with an NFT, if you mint it as an NFT and people want to use it, then they could
Then they
buy your
have to
NFT and get
for you.
access.
And the cool thing about NFTs, everybody, where is, sake of argument, you create a logo or something and you sell it. Let's say you do a one of one, right? It only exists there, the only one that can use it, right? And what you can do is you can do a 10% holdback, which means if Francesca buys it for me for $1,000, right, gets $1,000, but she in turn sells it for $1 million, I can get 10% of all future sales in perpetuity if it's set up correctly once you mint the NFT. So I really think it's going to foster greater creativity amongst the artistic community, because now they're going to really, it's not like the guy who struggles or the girl who struggles and then they finally get big and then they sell a painting for a little bit and then the people in the secondary market make out. They can really eat for the rest of their life. Is that correct, Francesca?
Yeah, definitely. And it's what's happening now. Just even if you are an artist, you have to be You have to be really careful. Like, I think the artist who did all the Bored Apes, I'm sure everyone now has seen the apes that they're selling
Yep.
for like 300K and up.
It's a photo of a
It's
weird
a
looking ape,
JPEG.
and it's a photo, 300K each.
Literally, but I think the artist, I read an article that the artist didn't make a lot of money because he or she signed an independent contractor agreement, so
Yikes.
and didn't negotiate it, right? If you're an artist, there's things you could be doing now to negotiate either some equity or some percentage of all sales of the NFT and a flat rate, so you get paid for the artwork. But there's just a lot right now. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also, if artists don't learn the law and like learn how to advocate for themselves, I'm seeing some like really unfortunate situations.
Now, I want to get to like everyday people, right? Like I'll go like business and then get to some everyday people. In the business realm, I own 2 magazines, and I'm pretty much a stickler because I've been through this. Where if let's say we hire a photographer, and let's say the photographer is not as notable, they'll do a fee for trade. They'll be like,
Yeah.
"Hey Tom, you know what? I'll do this photo shoot for you. I'll do it for free. Just go ahead and make sure I get the credit for it." The photographer gets exposure, we get the content, everybody wins. Not so fast. A lot of the time, I tell my team, pay everybody. And not that we go to a big contract, we probably should, Francesca,
Yeah.
but I make sure it's clear that it's work product. So
Okay.
we're paying you for those photos and we can use them. We're going to probably credit you as a courtesy, but we own those photos. So give us a little bit of between like, work product and freelancing. And, as a freelancer, when should you maybe want to get in on it and a company, when do you maybe want to make sure you protect yourself? Give maybe some thoughts on that.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna go back on my 3 pitfalls. The third
Yeah.
is not having a contract with an independent contractor.
Yes.
Because here's what happens. The independent contractor, no matter how much you pay them, you could pay them $1 million,
Yeah.
they own the intellectual property.
Oh, wow.
Most photographers, even when they have a contract, they say, I own the intellectual property. So the only time that you'll get it, and this is for logos,
Yeah.
branding,
Yeah.
anytime you're hiring an independent contractor,
Yeah.
they own the IP until there is a signed written agreement that transfers the rights to you.
Oh, shit. Even if it's work product.
Correct. A work made
Nice.
for hire. Yeah. We use it in this context like, oh, it's a work made for hire. It's a work made for hire. A work made for hire is a very, very narrow. It's literally either you're an employee within the scope of your employment, so you get benefits, salary,
Yeah.
like then if like you hire a full-time web designer and they're an employee of the company, then the business owns the IP on
But
that.
if they're 1099 or like a lot of these, like my team is mostly 1099. One business 1099ers by design because
Yes.
it's that type of business. And you're right. They may do work for me, but they may own that said product.
Always, yeah, independent contractor agreement. Like I honestly make my clients like a super basic, like a template one
Yeah.
that's all for the client, but then you can plug and play into a statement of work, like all the business terms. So at least like you have an independent contractor anytime you're hiring a web designer or a VA, whatever it is, anytime you're hiring people, you need to have independent contractor agreement.
Now I know defamation is a little bit of a different wheelhouse, but in
Yeah.
terms of IP, let's just say again, somebody takes my photo, makes me look even fatter, and then there's like memes about me and my likeness with the goal of defaming me. Again, and I know defamation is a little bit of a different wheelhouse. When do I have some recourse there? Again, is there injury, or if they're hurting me, or my feelings are hurt? I don't know, right? Like when can I, get involved?
So there's actually and we watch this with the verdict. The
Yeah,
plaintiff has to show 4 things. It's one, a false statement that's being held out to be a fact. 2, there's a publication or communication of that statement to some other person.
yeah,
3, fault amounting to at least negligence. So being like kind of like loosey-goosey and negligent about it. At least you could be intentional and you could be reckless, but negligence kind of like the
Yeah,
law.
that's if like I share like a private thing with you about my my medical history, and I tell you in confidence, although it's true, I told you in confidence, and you blare out to the world,
If
"Hey, Tom,
it's true,
well,
that knocks out the first prong and you're done. You
yeah,
have to show all four things. And then
got
the
it."
last is damages. So you said it's a true statement. Then that happens all the time. People say, "Oh, you're bad mouthing me. I'm going to sue you for defamation." If it's true,
And
you're
it's
done. It's not defamation.
got it. Interesting. What about like not to get too crazy, but for those people, they're in relationships, they tend to go a little crazy with the cameras, with the videos, that kind of stuff. Their partner has it maybe on their phone, and then you put it
Revenge
up.
porn.
Yeah, so walk us through that.
I just did a TikTok about this. Okay. So obviously like there have been recent movements to create revenge porn laws because it used to be that there weren't really many laws. Now there are. So there's criminal laws in some states, not every state.
Oh, so it is
And
criminal. I assume it's civil, but it's criminal. Okay, wow.
there
Could be.
definitely could be. It depends on the state.
Got it.
And also for copyright's really interesting. Okay.
Okay.
So I just did a TikTok about this. Like
Yeah,
most pictures are selfies, most private
yeah.
pictures. And if you're taking a selfie, then you're the photographer. And if you're the photographer, you own copyright.
Oh,
So there could be ways that you can actually even use copyright as a tool. It's just like, do you want to register those with the Copyright Office? I don't, but it's just something like to think
interesting. And
about.
then also, if like my partner has their phone and they film a lewd act, let's say, and it's consensual, but they don't get a release to share it, they're also could be on the hook as well because they didn't get a release from me to share that. Is that also correct?
Mm,
Or is that tricky?
it's a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because like, did you agree? Was there like it's that's like the gray area. You could argue that there was no release.
All right. For those watching, it's
Yeah,
hopefully not in that debacle. But for those
I know.
watching in general, when we watch these type of shows, we internalize. We're like, "Crap, this happened to
I
me."
know. I'm like, oh, copyright.
Yeah, exactly, right. So give us, we're gonna be wrapping it up soon, but give us a little bit of like, when do we call Francesca? When do we not? Like it's like handle this yourself, or versus
Sure.
you really call me now. Give us kind of like those dynamics.
I like to work preventatively and
Yeah.
proactively. It's like we all know if you wait so long until something's wrong with you to go to the doctor and then you need surgery because you didn't do something, like it's going to cost you 20 times that. It's the same thing with law. So I tell clients come to me even at the beginning is best. But anytime, any point in time, if you're growing and scaling. So what I do is I offer something called the IP Audit Playbook, where I get to look at the business as a whole and advise you on where your major legal exposures are, and also like it's kind of cool to see all the trademarks that you have that you didn't know, all of the copyrights that you have and you didn't
Yeah.
know, and that are unprotected, and then like a contract checklist. So that's kind of how I work.
Got it. One last thing before we conclude. As you know, I work in marketing. I do have a show. I get a lot of people come to me with ideas. I always recommend you, as you know, but I think people go to you too late. Like, oh my God, I got an idea. I got
All
an
the time.
invention. I got this. I got that. And I'm like, don't call the marketer. Call me after. Like, talk to Francesca first,
Yeah.
and then I'll market that idea for you, or get you money for that idea through marketing. But walk us through somebody who has that great idea and they want to protect it. Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So, and that's what happens, right? Is we think that, oh, we came up with this genius idea. No one's thought of this. And we rush and we run, we make a logo and we put it on the website and we start selling stuff.
Yeah.
Major problem, because that is that if someone has that name, it literally is trademark infringement. And
Oh,
saying,
wow.
whoops, I didn't know is not,
Not
it's not
execute.
an excuse.
Yeah.
So you could end up in a really bad situation where all you had to do is check the internet or check uspto.gov and you would have seen someone had the trademark.
Interesting.
So that is something you can do and everyone should do. Check uspto.gov, but note that's only, it's not a real trademark search. All that does is check to see if like there's the exact name. If there's a phonetic difference or even like a word that means the same thing, it could still be legally identical and it could be a problem. Someone can sue you. So that's why you work with trademark lawyers. You don't just file and wait and see. You really do need that search report from a trademark attorney to give you the advice as to what, hey, can I actually use this or not?
And then I remember we talked one time, and if people can contest it, and obviously if they don't, you can move forward. I'm going to put your link below. We have an audio component for iTunes. It does actually pretty well. So some of these people may be driving, or people watching may just be listening on the treadmill. How can we find it? Although the links are below, how can we find it, Francesca?
Just go to Instagram. I'm at the Trademark Attorney. You can click on the link. I have a free 15-minute discovery call. I'm always happy to chat and answer any questions.
And if you heard it from the show, tell them the Armchair MBA sent you. Francesca, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone.